Welcome. This very short video is just going to define the difference between an element and a compound. Elements and compounds are the two kinds of pure substances that exist. And remember, substances are different than mixtures because substances can only be separated chemically, if at all. So an element is a pure substance that has only one kind of atom in it, so they can't be separated physically or chemically because it's the smallest piece of an element. It's the smallest piece of a substance you can get and still have that element. For example, one atom of gold is the smallest sample of gold you can have and still have gold. Now, we do know that atoms or elements can actually be broken down further with a nuclear reaction to change the atom, but that's pretty unusual. So for our sake, elements are the smallest, purest substance you can have. And there's 92 naturally occurring elements on planet Earth. Each element has a unique name and a unique symbol. So examples that you've probably heard of: gold, hydrogen, mercury, and oxygen. If you look at the periodic table, you can see all 92 natural ones there, as well as the synthetic or man-made ones. The periodic table is a fascinating tool that chemists use all the time because it organizes elements into rows that we call periods, and then the vertical columns that we call families or groups. And each period and group has specific properties and patterns in it. There's physical and chemical properties in both the rows and the columns that we'll learn about as we go through chemistry this year. So Mendeleev is the guy credited with coming up with the table, although many people were looking at different ways to organize it. But he is given credit with coming up with the periodic table that has evolved into what we have as our modern periodic table. What's a compound? A compound is anytime you have two or more elements chemically combined with each other. So this is different than a mixture because they're chemically connected, so they have to be chemically separated. You can't just physically separate them with a magnet or a filter or distillation. So much of the matter around us is compounds. In fact, much of the matter around you is either a mixture or a compound, or most likely a combination of both. There's about 10 million known compounds, and it's estimated about 100,000 new compounds are developed and discovered each year. And this is really what industry is all about: coming up with new medications, coming up with new cosmetics, coming up with smaller computer chips. All of that stuff, that's all about developing new compounds. So some examples of compounds that you'd be familiar with are water, salt, sugar, and aspirin. And just like an element has a symbol, compounds can be represented with a chemical formula. So if there's no chemical formula for it, it's not a compound, it's likely some kind of mixture.